all that entails. Today, again, is Mother's Day, and I had just a couple quotes I wanted to share with you. No influence is so powerful as that of a mother. And again, we can substitute other things too as to who raised you. Maybe it was an aunt or a grandmother. God could not be everywhere, and therefore he made mothers. Or comedian Buddy Hackett said, "My mother's menu consisted of two choices, take it or leave it." I like that one. I might use that one. I think that's really good. As I was kind of looking through things, and again, thinking about the word abide and how that works, and then also thinking about mothers, I was thinking about it, and I can't take credit for this. I ran across it, but instead of calling it Mother's Day Sunday, calling it Women of Faith Sunday. And I kind of like that because I always try to make sure that I am including all women, because all women are not necessarily biological mothers, but there's a whole huge, and not every mother was a great, a mother that was really one that we want to model necessarily, right? That there's all these different complexities to it. And so I like the title of Women of Faith, because then we can really think about that. I hope at least that you can think of a number of women off the top of your head, maybe some that are sitting here today that have had an impact in your Christian walk. I did find this, I thought was kind of cute. Maybe I've shared this before in previous years, but I don't think so. But I found this, what are some things you never hear moms say? And I thought it worked well with that video. I'm glad some of you kind of chuckled and enjoyed that. But what are some things you never hear moms say? How on earth can you see the TV sitting so far back? Yeah, I used to skip school a lot too. Just leave the lights on. It makes the house look more cheery. Let me smell that shirt. Yeah, it's good for another week. Go ahead and keep that stray dog, honey, and I'll take care of feeding him and walking him every day. Well, if Ron's mom says it's okay, then it's okay with me. The curfew is just a general time to shoot for. It's not like I'm, running a prison around here. I don't have a tissue with me, just use your sleeve, right? Those are probably things we don't hear our mothers say very often. I also found this, I hope that you kind of enjoy it, but it's a help wanted position for mothers. And again, it's probably one of those things that's been circulating on the internet, but maybe you'll get a kick out of it. But the open position is mom, mommy, mama, ma. And the job description, long-term team players needed for challenging permanent work in an often chaotic environment. Candidates must possess excellent communication and organizational skills and be willing to work variable hours, which will include evenings and weekends and frequent 24-hour shifts on call. Some overnight travel required, including trips to primitive camping sites on rainy weekends and endless sports tournaments in faraway cities. Travel, that's not just for moms, right? Dads too. Travel expenses not reimbursed, extensive courier duties also required. And then responsibilities, the rest of your life. Must be willing to be hated, or at least temporarily, until someone needs $50. Must be willing to bite your tongue repeatedly. Also must possess the physical stamina of a pack mule and be able to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat, in case this time the screams from the backyard are not someone just crying wolf. Must be willing to face stimulating technical challenges such as small gadget repair, mysteriously sluggish toilets, and stuck zippers. Must screen phone calls, maintain calendars, and coordinate production of multiple homework projects. Must have ability to plan and organize social gatherings for clients of all ages and mental outlooks. I love this part. Must be willing to be indispensable 1 minute and embarrassment the next. Must handle assembly and product safety testing of 500,000 cheap plastic toys and battery-operated devices. Must always hope for the best but be prepared for the worst. Must assume final complete accountability for the quality of the end product. Responsibilities also include floor maintenance and janitorial work throughout the facility. And then your possibility for advancement and promotion as a mother, none. Your job is to remain in the same position for years without complaining, constantly retraining and updating your skills so those in your charge can ultimately surpass you. Previous experience, none required, on-the-job training offered at a continually exhausting basis. And wages and compensation, get this, you pay them. offering frequent raises and bonuses. A balloon payment is due when they turn 18 because of the assumption that college will help them to become financially independent. When you die, you give them whatever is left. The oddest thing about this reverse salary scheme is that you actually enjoy it and wish you could only do more. And then the benefits, well, no health or dental insurance, no pension, no tuition reimbursement, no paid holidays, no stock options are offered. This job supplies limitless opportunities for personal growth and free hugs for life if you play your cards right. So I thought that was kind of fun. So again, nobody deserves it, right, more than women, mothers, right, today, and then we'll say the same thing in June, right, because we know that everybody, mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandfathers, grandmothers, right, aunts, honorary uncles, right, we all work together. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a church village as well to raise a child. And again, sometimes, I try to be really, really careful because motherhood and Mother's Day can be kind of a pitfall with various minefields. For some, motherhood is an accident and not always necessarily a welcome one. For some, biological motherhood isn't possible. For some, mothers weren't, necessarily all that nice to us. For some, motherhood under the very best of circumstances is still less than a bed of roses. And again, we kind of all know that. So there's all these different circumstances in here. But again, I hope that you take it, again, with the spirit in which it is intended, that we remember the very best of our mothers. And because there's no sense in holding on to the negatives, that we can just celebrate and remember the very best of our mothers or grandmothers or whoever it is that we're thinking of. So again, think about all the different, things that our mothers can teach us, or again, if it's not our mothers, those people that had a real influence in our lives, whatever, and again, if you think about a female, I suppose, today, but it wouldn't have to be. That creative plan that person, that God gave us through that person, whoever that happens to be. Because again, think about it, motherhood and fatherhood truly may be the most self-sacrificing role that any of us play. And I'm guessing that we all would probably agree with that. So again, we're thinking about our gospel lessons, John 15th. The commandment there that Jesus says that you love one another as I have loved you. But again, it's a command so full of power and promise that we can hardly hear it as a command or a demand. But rather really an empowerment and a blessing to love one another as I have loved you, Jesus says to us. And again, why? What's the reasoning? So that my joy may be complete in you and that your joy may be complete. So we're really not complete until we are loving other people or serving other people. Again, I try to model that with the kids as well of just, let's everybody go give everybody else something first, and then if there's any left, then you're welcome. And I would have made sure that the girls, or I'm sure that the person who made these would have made sure that every little girl got one, right? But what a good lesson, right, to teach that you serve first, and then, and sometimes there's not enough or there's enough for you, and sometimes there's not. And that's okay, because that's what giving is about, and that's what our eventually we can become joyful in that. Maybe not necessarily when we're younger, right? I wanted one of those, right? But hopefully through Christian maturity, we get to the point that it's the other person's happiness. So yeah, I would like to do these things, but you know what? It's my husband's happiness, or my children's happiness, or my wife's happiness, or my partner's happiness, whatever that is, that we think of that first. And sometimes, again, that's really difficult to do because we as humans like to kind of have it, our way, right? But how important that is, because the longer that we can work through that, the more that we really are able to truly be full of joy when others are full of joy. So this passage at the heart of John's gospel is about that ultimate connection, that connection to life from the beginning and then now and later and always, which is always love. And if you think about it, it's kind of a continuation, maybe you already thought of that, of the sermon from last week. Remember when the 15th chapter of John, which we're continuing, where Jesus says, I am the true vine and my Father is the vine grower. And we talked about that, right, last week. God is the source, and Jesus is the living connection. And that's sometimes how we can get lost, right, in our way. We talked about that kind of jokingly in the little poem I read for the kids, right? That, I don't have a record, and I don't have all these different things. Maybe in part because, the way that we kind of learn things. Now, again, that doesn't mean that just because somebody makes bad choices, it doesn't mean, they must have had terrible parents, right? We all know that that's not the case at all. But at the same time, some of those core things, no matter what that is, just maybe an positive attitude on life, or the way that we treat each other. Sometimes you really can look at that and go, oh my gosh, that is so nice. Ben had his school meeting, and they were saying at his, hope it's okay I share this. I guess it better be, because I guess I'm doing it without your asking. But that they were saying that, oh my gosh, he's such a polite young man. And he is just so terrific, with customers. He works at Subway, and he does such a nice job. And they said, oh, yeah, that you can really tell that you raised him right, or that. And I thought, well, I'd love to take credit for that. And I think maybe, hopefully, that we're polite at our house. But also just some of that is just his basic goodness in his soul and spirit, right? So again, it's always complicated where all of that comes from. But I think we all, as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, just really like to think that, I really want to try to model this, so that no matter what happens in their lives, no matter twists and turns, and all of our kids take twists and turns, some for the better, some for the worse, that inside that they are the person that we want them to be, a kind, loving, generous, whatever, fill in the blank. Person that we want them to be. And so sometimes if we're cut off from that, sometimes we can make other choices. And it's the same thing with Jesus. If we're cut off from the vine of Jesus, that direct connection of Jesus, whether it's praying to him, whether it's reading his words in the scriptures, we can start to really get our life messed up. We really can, right? I was thinking about the video that we saw there with that mom personal assistant. And I thought, that's kind of the same kind of thing that we do with Jesus, right? That we kind of go, okay, so I'm going to go do whatever. And then can you almost hear like Jesus kind of saying to you, whether it's the little angel on the shoulder or just a little, voice in our heads that you hear, you really need to stop that. You really need to just settle down. You need to just take a minute and think about this before you get all, cranked up, or before you say this. So we really do need to stay connected to Jesus. And again, I think that's where we get in trouble, is when we don't do that. And then we start thinking that we're in charge, right? You all know that prayer where you say, Lord, you are God and I am not. That acknowledgement, right? And that's sometimes the issue, when we just get into our own lives and our own desires and our own getting all upset about that person, so I'm going to type this up and put this on social media, and I'm going to do this and that we sometimes just get so far away from how it is that God wants us to be acting. So stay rooted with God. Stay connected to Jesus because he is the vine. And that's, I guess, kind of where I'm heading with today's service, is to really think about that term, to abide in something. I was going to look up the Webster's Dictionary thing. I know that's a little bit, overdone, I suppose, to start a speech by giving the Webster's Dictionary definition. But I'm assuming that it is something about staying in the presence of, right? Staying mentally with somebody, hanging in there no matter what, abiding. I'm going to abide with you. So I'm not going to just take off if you make me mad, but we're going to be in this together, right? Whether it's a relationship with God or with other people. Jesus says, abide in me as I abide in you. So it's a two-way dialogue, right? I don't know if those of you who remember from last week, but we talked about that in my invocation, about a holy dialogue. And on purpose, I used that phrase a couple times, so I don't know if it stayed with you, but it stayed with me all week. Of a holy dialogue, that it's not just me telling God, okay, I'm going to pray, dear Lord, please help me do blah, blah, please do this for me, please take care of this person for me, right? This laundry list of things, but it's a dialogue. Lord, I'm just going to be in your presence. I'm going to listen for you. Yes, I'm going to share things, although God knows our hearts, right? We don't have to say a word out loud. He knows. But still, we feel better. It's a good working through it. But then we've got to make sure that we're quiet again to listen to God's response to us, right? To keep that dialogue both ways. And again, to try to make sure that that connection does not get broken. I read, somebody mentioned a love line can become clogged or blocked, pulled out, and then people wither, right? So think about it like an electrical cord, right? That you're plugged into something. Last week, that was my kid's moment, right? That I had the light and I couldn't figure out, why it wasn't working and it wasn't plugged in. So that we have to stay connected. Our kids must think I'm the dumbest person in the universe, right? If you think about it. Because last week I was pretending like I didn't know how to, do the light. But anyway, so hopefully you change their mind about that. I hope at least you stick up for me. But anyway, just trying to stay connected. And the good thing is that even if we do become disconnected from that branch, from that vine, from our power source, however you want to look at it, that we always know that God and Jesus always are there for us. So we never, ever are beyond the scope of God's love for us. So no matter where we are in our walks, that God always is waiting there, right? And again, using the mother analogy just because it's Mother's Day. But again, of that same kind of thing, that no matter what our kids do, that we are right there, right? We are right there. What can we do? Yes, here I am, right? And that's exactly, if we on earth have that same kind of love, just imagine the love that Jesus has for us. It's beyond anything that we can imagine. So we need to stay together. We need to stay connected to God. We need to stay connected to God, not just for our own relationship, but for us to be able to have that energy and that power to be able to then show that same love with each other, to abide with God, that God doesn't give up on us, that he is always there with us. We always can just sit in his presence, and that we have that same kind of love and graciousness with other people, that they can abide with us, that they can just sit with us. How many of you have those kind of friendships, or even marriages, or which really hopefully is a good friendship too, right? But those kinds of relationships where that you can just go in and sit down in the same room and you don't have to say anything for like 10 minutes, right? And you can just be in each other's presence and just, and then abide in each other's presence, and then I'm going to share, whatever back and forth. But think about it. I don't think that there is any mother who ever gave her children any less love than she was able to. Does that make sense? I mean, I think people really do try, and sometimes there are just things that get in the way. Some mothers or grandmothers or people get caught up so much in themselves or in their past hurts or their past failures or their insecurities. I think that's a big one. That they're unable to fully and completely love and give of themselves. Maybe that was you in your relationship. Maybe that was your mother or grandmother. But again, that's by having those feelings, if we can get connected back in with God in our theological relationship, our loving relationship with him, then we are able to not necessarily have all those issues that are going to crop up and get in the way of our relationships. I pray that we stay connected. I pray that we are thinking about that image of the vine or the lamp, right? Put a lamp out, unplugged, and just set it somewhere so that you remember that. Like every morning, right, I'm going to take some time to pray. I'm going to take some time for reflection. I want to close today with a blessing for mothers. This blessing is for all mothers who have sat up all night with sick toddlers saying, "It's okay, honey, mommy's here." This blessing is for the mothers who gave birth to babies they may never see, and the mothers who took those babies forever to be their own children. This blessing is for all mothers who attended ball games, recitals, rehearsals, and who said, "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," and meant it. Creator God, what makes a good mother anyway? Is it patience? Is it firmness? Is it a soft lap? Or is it mothering? Is it the mothering that's in her heart? Is it the ache she feels when she watches her child disappear down the street walking to school for the very first time? The jolt that takes her from sleep to dread and from bed to crib in about 2 a.m. to put her hand on the back of a sleeping baby? the need to flee from wherever she is and hug her child when she hears news of a school shooting, a fire, a car accident. So this blessing is for all the mothers who sat down with their children and explained all about making babies, and for all the mothers who wanted to but just couldn't. This blessing is for all the mothers who yell at their kids in the grocery store with frustration and despair. This blessing is for the mothers who show up to work with milk stains on their blouses and diapers in their purse. This blessing is for all the mothers who teach their sons to cook and their daughters to speak up with pride and fix a car. This blessing is for mothers who put pinwheels, teddy bears, or flowers on their children's grave. This blessing is for mothers whose children have gone astray, who haven't the words to reach them, and yet have never put them from their heart. This blessing is for new mothers stumbling through diaper changes and sleep deprivation, and mature mothers learning to let go. For working mothers and stay-at-home mothers, single mothers, and married mothers. And this blessing is for all of us who will move beyond sentiment into actions to support mothers and mothering persons in all of their life-giving and life-nurturing roles. May it be so. Amen. I'd like you to join me, if you would, in our time of prayer in the words